I'm hoping you don't have to press another button there after all that. So a nice little practice for joints, for inflammation, for aches and pains. And apart from food and stuff and avoiding inflammatory triggers that are for you that are inflammatory, like alcohol, sugar, gluten, whatever. And not everybody finds gluten inflammatory, by the way. You don't have to cut out all those things if they don't make you react. But apart from those kind of systemic inflammation, avoiding those inflammation triggers, how might we mind inflammation through our practice, but also how might we practically be in our joints in a therapeutic way? Those of you who are here live, feel free to interrupt me with questions, queries, concerns. And one of the important things to do right now in terms of minding your stress response, which is how we mind our inflammatory response from a practice perspective, is to make sure we're really comfortable, that we feel safe. And one of the ways we feel safe is by feeling sufficiently warm. So does my body feel warm enough to relax? Does anything hurt a bit now? Because we're not going to feel safe enough to relax if something's already a little bit sore or uncomfortable. And then just begin to lengthen your breath. We're gonna do breath practice on its own later. But you can breathe long and slow now if your body is ready for that. And then begin really gently to move your head, to roll it side to side with a sense that your brain is heavy in your body, heavy in your skull, and the shifting of the weight of your brain is drawing your head into a rolling motion side to side. Notice if you're holding in the jaw or the forehead or the space between the eyebrows. See if you can relax there. And if any yawning comes in, really encouraging that. I always encourage it anyway. But when we're talking about releasing stress and regulating the nervous system as a route to reducing inflammation, then yawning is a great friend. Yeah. And then we're going to take the hands up off the belly, and you can either cease with the head rolling or continue as we circle the wrists. And circle them the other way. And then take the arms off the floor and move the arms in the air in a way that allows your shoulders to move in as much direction and as many directions as you can. Obviously, you're not going to be able to bring them backwards because of the floor. Changing direction, maybe if you're doing circling. And only going as far as your current shoulder issues allow you to feel easy. So not pushing into discomfort, not pushing into, I wish I had that range of motion. Just what is your current range of motion? Just thinking about warmth and articulation rather than trying to improve. And then let those arms come down, and we're going to take the feet off the floor and articulate the ankles. Changing direction. Excuse me. And then circling the entirety of your knees. So you might be doing alternate circling of your hips, or maybe they're circling away, the knees are circling away from and towards each other. Maybe you're holding the knees, maybe your knees are in outer space on their own, not outer space, in space without being held. So I'm quite liking today this sort of alternating the circles because it's giving me this rocking on my back. Another day I might prefer more symmetrical circling because it really gets deep into my hip joints. And then when you're ready, pause in that and take your two knees over to one side. So you're in a nice deep twist. So you're thinking about, you know, we've been warming up joints from the extremities in, and now we're thinking about the joints of our vertebrae, one vertebrae to the next. If there's any self-touch that is required or desired here, remember the benefits of self-touch for the feel-good hormones, for the nervous system. And rolling to the other side with the knees for the twist on the other direction, in the other direction. Try and keep the hips stacked vertically, especially if you have osteoporosis, but also if you have osteoporosis, try not to be pushing yourself into too deep a twist. Go to a twist that feels like you just easily get there. Nothing pushed or pulled. Come onto your back again. And take your hands in front of you and just begin to stroke your hands. Maybe with the eyes closed or open if you need. But just notice, what is it like to stroke your hands quite mindfully? So it's not just random rubbing or trying to warm them. You're actually investigating the surfaces of your hands through touch. Find the bumpy bits, the smooth bits, the soft bits, the hard bits, the warm bits, the cool bits, the wrinkly bits. And notice what it's like to keep swapping your attention from which hand feels like it's doing the touching and which hand feels like it's receiving more. And what is the experience of receiving touch? Can you let one hand notice what it is like to receive touch? It's quite hard to be that hand, to bring your attention into the hand that's being touched. See if you can find that. And then, because it's probably easier, bring your attention to the hand that is doing the touching and what's its experience. And then let that touch travel down your arms. And maybe the arms have to move in space to allow that touch to happen. Down the whole length of the arms. And you begin to notice that to facilitate the touch, you are moving instinctively the way your body desires to move to facilitate something pleasant, which is this touch. And then what happens if the hands go to touch the face or the chest or the hair or the waist or the legs? So just bring your hands on a journey through the whole body, any pace or any order that you like. And you don't have to get into rolling around so you can touch your back and stuff. Don't neglect your lovely legs. As many of the surfaces of your legs as you can. Don't neglect your lovely feet. And receive the touch. Try and notice the part of the body that's being touched as well as the experience of the hands. And the hands have loads of nerve endings, so it's hard not to prioritize what they're feeling. See if every now and then you can receive the touch. Maybe tickling helps you feel the touch more. And then at some point, can you find your way to having both hands on a foot? You might need to bend that foot up onto the ankle, onto the knee rather, and give that foot a massage, like a quite traditional massage. Well, whatever kind of touch it would like, but trying to waken up that tissues of that foot through a bit of pressure, a bit of squidging. And you might want to even articulate your toes with your touch. Now, if you do have inflamed joints right now, you don't go massaging, pressing deeply into them. You are on the side of stroking, softness. And particularly, I didn't mention this yet, actually. I've kind of forgotten to put this into the slides and should have. Looking after the lymphatic system to reduce inflammation would be very beneficial. And that requires very gentle stroking. And we'll do a little bit of that later. And then move up to massage the ankle. And then moving up to massage your knee. And what's the best position you need your foot in or your leg in to get into the knee with the least complication? Knees don't have a great deal of blood supply, so they need a lot of TLC. And down through the thighs to the hip joints. You could go all the way through the legs, you know, stay with all the muscles of the legs, but I'm just focusing on getting into the joints. So these are joints that are very gristly, lots of different layers, hard to get into. So you have to really work around the entirety of the top of the thigh, into the groins, at the inner leg, into the groins, at the front of the leg, into around the base of the buttocks, the side of the hip. Try and get in there. And we'll go back now to the first foot. You're always welcome if we're doing this, if you're doing this again, to spend longer, to pause the recording and linger longer with all the bits. So we're on our feet now, toes, and the rest of the feet at your leisure, at your speed. It's a bit easier to notice the receiving when it's more robust. You can feel more the sense of it in the limb rather than in the hands themselves and into the ankle, but that doesn't mean you have to go robust. And then up into the knee. And up into the joint of the hip. Downside of self-massage is we get tired hands. That's where we need our own private massage therapist on hand at all times. And then we'll let that go, and we're going to massage the spine by pulsing or flossing the spine up and down on the floor. So I've taught probably all of you this at some point, but I know that it can be tricky to master this rhythm where it eventually feels like it's almost being done to you. And just note, I'm going to do it wrong for a sec. If you can look if you want to, if you think you don't know whether you're getting it. So this would be not what we're looking for, a sort of jerking up and down. It's a rhythmic, kind of mindless, wobbly pulsing up and down. The head would be going with you. Sometimes it's easier with your feet up on a bolster. So if you find it hard, you could put your feet up on a bolster. Cushions wouldn't really work because they'd be too soggy. And you might find that if you're doing this okay, that you can also enjoy doing it slightly to one side, like you rock a little onto one side and you're flossing or pulsing the right side of the trunk, or the one side of the trunk, and then you might roll to the back and to the other side and floss or pulse there. This is a really, really nice way of warming up the joints, de-stressing. Nervous system likes these kind of pulsing, rhythmic, wobbly, floppy movements. Sometimes in flossing, where I can't remember who invented it, what movement modality, but they'll go with one leg straight. And they'll even go with two legs straight, which I find impossible to master, but you might be able to play with having a leg straight sometimes. Let's see what works for you. If there was a single takeaway from this evening's practice, it could be that you're going to develop a flossing routine and do it every day for 5, 10, 15 minutes if you can build up to that, even with some rhythmic music to help you keep time in this pulsing. Let's let it go now, though, and let the legs go long and just rest in the afterglow. And notice the tingles or the pulsing or whatever sensation you notice, wherever in your body you notice it. And then when you're ready, bend your knees, roll to your side, take a moment on your side. And then come up to sitting, back on your heels if you can. So a sitting kneel. So here's where we get into tricky stuff for the joints. And if any of this doesn't feel good for you, you gotta stop. So if sitting back on your heels is already dodgy for your knees, then you need to put a cushion under your bum. And if that still doesn't work, you can do a standing kneel so that you're kneeling right up. If you're happy down here, can you bring the heels close together so that you feel very supported by your heels into your sitting bones and right up to your head. Sense of your skeletal alignment. And then if it feels okay to lean back onto your hands and lean back onto the feet. And if that feels okay, lift your knees a little, and that will be quite the something on your ankles. Maybe too much something on your ankles, and you may choose not to lift your knees, or you might even choose to come back up to kneeling properly again. And then come back up to kneeling again, and tuck your toes this time. And sit back on your heels, and that might be torturous for some. Woohoo! A little bit torturous for me on the left. And breathe. And don't go coping with something that your body is not enjoying, please. This is not about coping. And then come up to a standing kneel, and if you can, step your left foot forward and come into a high lunge. And we're just going to go back and forth nice and gently. We're not going to try and go terribly far. So it's like we're oiling up rather than trying to reach a certain destination. And check in with your ankles, maybe fold something under the back knee. Check in with the knees themselves. And check in with the hips. So you'll be feeling a little pull on the front of the back hip and a compression in the front hip. And we're looking at how can we find various ranges of motion without that bone on cartilage pressure. And then you might fancy doing a bit of circling of that knee, or maybe you've had enough already and you want to rest back and wait. And then bring that foot back, step the other one forward, and nice, easy back and forth. And notice whether you're terribly serious in your face or whether you're able to have a little smile around your eyes, a smile around your mouth. And let's start focusing on the breathing now again. So maybe you're breathing out with the lean forward and in with the lean back. Or maybe the breath isn't related to the movement and is just a consciousness of deepening your breath and preferably breathing through your nose. And then maybe circling. And maybe changing direction or maybe stopping. And then taking that knee back. And come down onto your knuckles, kind of gorilla style. So you're up. I'm going to put my hand on a pretend floor here closer to the camera. So you're up on the middle knuckles, not down here on the backs of the fingers, like right towards the back of the hands, but up a little higher if you can at all, possibly. And if you can't, you might find you're better to just be on your palms. So we're working into the wrists here, but gently. And if you can't manage anything on your wrists, just come onto your elbows and do some core strengthening work. And that's by whichever we're doing, we're circling hand to hand to knee to knee. If you're on your elbows, it's elbow to knee. And it won't be getting into the wrists, obviously, if you're on the elbows. Change direction. And then if you have it in you, if your wrists are okay with it, come down to flat palms now. And we're going to do a different movement. We're going to draw a figure of 8. So you're going to bring your weight to your right hand, left hand, right knee, left knee. Right hand, left hand across to the right knee, left knee diagonally across to the right hand, across to the left, diagonal across to the right knee. So keep going with your figure of 8 and try and get as fluid and sensual as you can. So let go of this idea of it being about the hands and knees and just bring in this sensual snaking of the spine in a vague figure of 8. If it turns into something else, that's fine. As big or small as you like. But notice the pleasure that's available and try and move now for just the sake of juicy movement through space. Looking for the yumminess, changing direction if you want, if it's not too discombobulating, as long as you can still seek the yumminess. If it turns into something else, that's really fine. If it becomes just an improvisation in the spine, or if you want to go up and do face down dog and mooch about there, you're welcome. Anything. And then let's turn it into a sway of the hips side to side, like a wag of the tail, very slow, sensual wag of the tail, and the head will be coming with you. I'm just feeling kind of slinky. This is really doable down on the elbows if the wrists have had enough. You could even do it kneeling up and just have a little dance through your spine on the vertical. And then we'll change it one more time by circling the hips or circling the pelvis, as if you're drawing a big circle with your tail on the wall. Up on the hands or down on the elbows. Change direction with your circle. Notice if the circle feeds in through the spine and up through to the head. Don't forget to breathe. And let the movement get smaller and smaller and smaller until it almost disappears. And eventually find your way back to child's pose if you like it. If you've osteoporosis, you need to keep your spine as neutral as possible by maybe bringing the knees wider to let the belly settle between the legs so that the lumbar spine is straighter, flatter, and maybe putting a block or hands or cushions or whatever under your head so that your head isn't curled down. That's just if you've osteoporosis. Breathe, and if child's pose doesn't work for you, lie on your back and hug your knees, or lie on your side, curl in a little bit. And breathe. And notice what you notice. And then when you're ready, come up to sitting, and I highly recommend you sit on a little something so that you're not too close to the floor, so that your pelvis gets to be higher than your knees preferably. And sitting cross-legged, if you have joint issues, may not be possible at all, and it really isn't preferable in any way. Just if it's solid for you, it's a great place to sit. If it's not, you can do spider legs with the feet like this is a really good alternative for what we're about to do. There'll be some times when all of us will need to change our leg position. So we're just going to do a little bit of self-led lymphatic practice. So when we're looking to stimulate the lymphatic system, it's very close to the surface of our skin, and yet it is such an essential, I mean, not all of it is close to the surface of the skin, but it is such an essential part of our well-being, or not just our well-being, but our functioning. And yet it is quite vulnerably close to the surface. But the great thing about that is that it takes very little to stimulate. And we've already been stimulating it through movement, but we're going to stimulate it now through touch. So the way in which you stimulate the lymphatic through touch is extremely light. It's really just this gentle pull of the skin. So there's a lot of lymph nodes around the neck. There's a lot around the abdomen. There's a lot in the armpits. There's a very important junction in the chest where the lymph goes back into the bloodstream. There's a lot in the groins. There's a lot in the back of the knees. So we're not going to do the knees today. We'll do the groins a little, the armpits, the chest, and the neck, and the abdomen as well. So starting by taking your fingers behind your ears, and you're just working with the pads of your fingers, not the tips, and it really isn't tiring because it's a really light pull. So we're just going to pull the hands down the sides of the neck from behind the ears, an inch or so, the kind of pressure that just makes your skin stretch a little. Then take a step halfway up that inch and pull down another inch. Take a step halfway up that second inch and pull down another inch. And take a step halfway up that inch and pull down. Depending on the length of your neck, you'll be nearly there at the bottom of the neck. And we'll go again. Same thing. Just a level of tension or pressure that pulls the skin in gently. You could do this lying down or sitting on a chair. And when you get down to the hollow above the collarbones, just create a tiny pressure there. Relax the shoulders, little pressure, collarbones. Then crossing your hands, get your fingers just under your collarbones. With the hands crossed is possibly just a little easier. And then lift the elbows. And you'll feel the pressure of the fingers just a little heavier in there, and a little stretch the armpits and bring the fingers down. So we're kind of working that thoracic duct, the duct that brings the cleansed fluids back into the bloodstream, up and down. There's also other ways you might work that one, like a back bend, taking the hands behind the back and stretching the chest, that kind of thing. And then we're going to take the hands behind the head, and we're just going to wing them back, forward, wing them back, forward. Make sure not to pull your head, and wing them back and forward. We might as well do that little thoracic stretch, because that's going to be nice for the joints too. So interlacing the fingers behind your back and lifting your arms, feeling that gentle pull across the skin of your chest. Breathing. And releasing your arms. We'll take our hand under one armpit and do that same kind of inch by inch stroking from the arm through the armpit towards the chest. So we're always moving towards the heart, towards the thoracic duct, really. So this stroking, just pulling of the skin towards the chest. A couple more times with the armpit. What I love about this is it's so gentle and not tiring. Oh, we'll do the other armpit. No harm in deepening your breath as you go. can relax the arm, stroking in towards the breast, towards the sternum. This would be a nice thing to do as a precursor maybe to if any of you have scarring from surgery, mastectomies or anything. If you do self-massage, you could add in this little bit of lymphatic intention as well. And then we're going to move down to the groins and do a little stroke up towards the abdomen. Might be a bit easier to get the legs out long for this, or standing might be easier. Just pulling the skin of the groins up towards the navel. Breathing. Things like inversions, legs up the wall, face down dog, also good for the lymphatics. Abdominal massage too. But for our abdomen, we're going to go into a little twist now. So legs, however you like them. And just bring your hands, one to your belly and one to your heart, so that we're not levering our twist with our hands. And just use the muscles of your abdomen to turn you to one side, so that the chest goes. The hand and the belly isn't going to turn much, not as much as the chest. And back to center. And use the muscles of the belly to turn you to the other side. And back to center. And use the muscles of the belly to turn you to the first side. And back to center. And use the muscles of the belly to turn you to the other side. And back to center. Letting your hands rest wherever you like for a little breathing practice before we do a nice restorative pose. You don't have to have your hands on your trunk at all. They can be resting on your lap wherever you like. And we'll just begin with simple paced breathing, so that we're breathing in for a count of about 4 or 5 decent seconds. And there may be a natural pause there at the top of the inhale, and breathing out for similar or longer. And there may be a pause at the bottom of the exhale. In that, you can choose to let the belly expand on the inhale and draw in on the exhale, or you might be more inclined to stimulate your rib cage by keeping the belly quiet and instead letting the expansion happen sideways into the ribs on the inhale. What feels good for you? What feels like it's not an added stress? We're really aiming for gentle, pleasurable, low impact practice. We're going to do a little bit of cyclic sighing. Cyclic sighing is in a very recent piece of research, comparing it with some other breathing practices, came out top in terms of nervous system regulation and stress reduction. And cyclic sighing is when we inhale through the nose, full breath, and then we top it up with another little inhale. And then we take a very long exhale. And that exhale can be through the mouth with a sigh, or it can be through the nose without a sigh. So in yoga, we have a 3-part breath that's part of a thing called the breath of joy. And it doesn't have the long exhalation. It usually has quite a fast exhalation, but I think it might help us to get the cyclic bit of the inhale. So in Breath of Joy, we use some arm movements where we bring the arms up as we breathe in, and then we take another part of the breath in, the arms come up to the side, and then we take a finish of the breath in up to the center. So in Breath of Joy, it's like this, it's all an inhale. But obviously in the cyclic sign that's been researched, it's just 2. So what I'm going to do is suggest that we use our arms to find that top up, because it's quite tricky to find the top up, I find, without the arms. So if we want to exhale together, and we're going to breathe in with the arms coming up, and then take a second breath in with the arms coming forward, and that gives you just hopefully that little second impulse, and then exhale long and slow. Inhale, top it up, exhale. We'll do 6 more, breathing in, top it up, exhale. You don't have to use the arms if you don't want to. 5 more. Three more, I think. Try it if you like for the last 2 without the arms, or use them if you find it helpful. The last one. Coming back to your paced breathing and noticing how you're doing. And before we come to our restorative posture, I'd like to finish this breathing section with some humming. And I'm going to suggest 6 hums, and I suggest you hum at any note that you fancy, and allow for your jaw to be at ease so your teeth aren't clamped shut, and try and allow your lips to vibrate. And you may play with the note each time so that you find the humming note that gives you the most ease and the greatest vibration. So try and kind of ignore my note so that you can play with your own. And once you find the note that you like, you can then continue to do that one repeatedly if you like. So we'll do 6 breaths. So breathing in together. Any note you like, 4 more. About 2 more. letting that go when you're ready and just noticing what you notice. For your restorative pose, I'm suggesting legs up the wall for that further lymphatic support. But if you have a go-to favorite that you want to do instead, or if you just want to do Shavasana, you're welcome to do that. Make sure you'll be warm. Take some of your meditative energy with you as you set up if you can. Make sure you'll be comfy, so maybe a folded blanket under you. You might want a bolster or a block for under your pelvis to elevate you a little higher in your legs up the wall. Maybe you have something to wrap around you. And for getting legs up the wall, remember reversing in can be helpful, kind of backing your bum in the wall sideways so that when you roll onto your back, you're very close to the wall and you don't feel that your knees are locking as your legs lean on a diagonal towards the wall. But if you can't get your bum close to the wall, put a bolster behind your knees so they're not without some kind of support. And then if you feel like you want extra elevation, you bend the knees, lift the pelvis and put a block or even a sturdy-ish cushion under your pelvis. Make sure it's not under your tail, it's under your sacrum rather than down under the bottom of your buttocks or your coccyx, so that your pelvis then tilts away from your face. So you have a little back bend and there isn't extra weight being thrown onto your neck and shoulders. You might feel like wrapping a coat or a blanket around your legs. You might feel like putting an eye pillow or a sock over your eyes. You might feel like draping your arms in cactus position beside your head, or you might prefer to have your hands on your body or anywhere in between. And breathe and settle, rest your weight. And if it feels good for your nervous system, as you lie with your eyes, actually, it doesn't matter. You can do this with your eyes closed. I was going to say eyes open, but actually just think about working on opening your peripheral vision. So if your eyes are closed, I mean, obviously this isn't literally working in terms of the ocular effect with the eyes closed, but try to imagine that you are trying to see the outer corners of your eyes while looking straight ahead. If your eyes are open, you're looking straight ahead or up to the ceiling, depending on the position you're in, and you're trying to see some detail to the left and right of you as far to your peripheral vision as you can without moving your eyes. So you're opening your peripheral vision, which is a really nice, easy, do anywhere nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system support. You might find if you're doing it with your eyes closed that just having the thought of widening the outer corners of your eyes helps. And it may give you this little knock-on effect of a widening of the corners of the mouth and a widening across the chest. What do you feel as you think of widening the outer corners of your eyes or broadening your peripheral vision?
And returning to your paced breathing if you can while you hang around here in your upside downiness. And we're going to do a little visualization for our joints. Some of you will have noticed me doing this with you in Shavasana or restorative poses before. So we're going to notice spaces between the bones of our feet and toes. Space in our ankle joints. Noticing space deep within the knee joints. And noticing space deep in your hip joints. Spaces between the vertebrae of your spine. Space deep within your shoulder joints. Space in your elbow joints. Space between the bones of your wrists and hands, and fingers. Space at the hinges of your jaw. Space between your eyebrows. And space between your thoughts.
And then taking a moment to notice your needs and desires right now. You might need or desire to stay here for another 20 minutes. You might need and desire to bring this to a close now or any time over the next minute or day. When you do decide to exit this place, make sure to do so by increments, maybe bringing in small bits of movement, maybe rolling to the side, maybe having a pleasurable yawn stretch. And when you do decide to move, eventually coming up to sit, taking some time breathing to yourself before you get on with whatever you have to get on with. And for those of you who are here live now, I'm just going to sit and be here for the next couple of minutes. And if you do get up and have any questions or observations, just unmute yourself. And a prescription for you for your joints would be to try in the mornings when you wake to do some yummy rolling around in your bed, some yawn, stretch, pandiculation in the bed before you get up to get the synovial fluid rocking and the fascia woken up. Could be a great support for the rest of your day. May you be well. May you be free from harm. May you progress where possible. May you find ways to be at ease with the rest. Om Shanti, Namaste. I'm here for you, those of you who are here with any questions or well.